Hi everyone, how are you all doing? Welcome to BioXplaining. Today's topic that we are going to talk about is classification of flowers. So for a very quick recap about what we studied in the previous video, let us just recall the different parts of a bisexual flower. Let's start with the first whorl of a flower. The first whorl is what we call to be the calyx, and the individual units are the sepals, right? Then the second whorl is the corolla, and the individual units are the petals. The third whorl of a bisexual flower is what we call to be the androecium, and this androecium has individual units that we call to be the stamens, and this is the male part of a flower. The fourth whorl of a bisexual flower is the gynoecium, and the gynoecium has individual units which are known as the pistil, or we can also have an alternate name to it. We can call it to be the carpel, and this is the female part of a flower. So the calyx, corolla, androecium, gynoecium, all the four whorls make up what we call to be a bisexual flower. Okay. So there can be different ways in which we can classify flowers. There can be different bases on which flowers can be classified. So let us get started with them one by one. The first basis that we are considering is the presence or the absence of the whorls of a flower. I hope you can now recollect what the four whorls of a flower are. So based on this, flowers can be of two categories. What are they? One is complete flower. The other category is incomplete flower. So complete flower means that all the four whorls are present. The calyx, the corolla, the androecium and the gynoecium. All four whorls are present in the flower. And when you talk about incomplete flowers, that means either one or more of the whorls are missing from the flower. For example of complete flowers, you can consider hibiscus, rose, etc. For incomplete flowers, what can we have? We can have papaya, pumpkin, etc. Now, one thing that we have to remember is that complete flowers can also be known as perfect flowers, right? Means a flower which has all the four whorls, calyx, corolla, androecium, gynoecium, is a complete flower, or it can also be called to be a perfect flower. And incomplete flowers also are known as what? They are also known as imperfect flowers. Okay. So the next type of classification is done on the basis of the reproductive parts, that is the male part and the female part. So based on it, the two types of flowers that we have are, one is unisexual and the other is bisexual. So uni means one. That means that these kind of flowers will have only one sex organ. It either has the androecium or it has the gynoecium, right? Androecium is present in flowers. Only when androecium is present in a flower, we call it to be staminate flowers, because androecium has individual units called stamens. So hence the name comes, that is staminate flowers. And flowers where only the gynoecium is present, these flowers are known as pistillate flowers. The individual unit of the gynoecium is the pistil. That is where it gets the name, that is pistillate flowers. Bi means two. That means that both the sexes are present. The male part as well as the female part is present in such a flower. These flowers are also known as hermaphrodite flowers. So for example of unisexual flowers, we can have papaya, pumpkin, etc. And for example of bisexual flowers, we can have hibiscus, rose, etc. Right? So what we have seen just now, that unisexual flowers are further of two types. The first is staminate flowers. What are staminate flowers? That is, they only contain the stamens, meaning the male reproductive part. It will only have the androecium. And the other one is the pistillate flower, meaning a flower which has only the gynoecium, that is the female part. So for example, what we can see here is cucumber has different flowers for containing the male part and the female part. It has separate pistillate flowers and it has separate staminate flowers. So all these flowers are of the unisexual type, that they contain only one sex organ. This is just a diagrammatic representation of a bisexual flower. So what can you find here? In the bisexual flower, you can find the female part, that is the pistil present, and you can also find the male part, that is the stamen. Both are present. While in case of a staminate flower, what you see is you can only see the stamens present and the pistils not being present. And on the other hand, in case of a pistillate flower, you could only find the pistil or the carpel, whatever you call it, and no stamens to be present. Another category of flower exists which is known as neuter flowers. So the name itself is suggestive of its meaning, that it neither has the male parts nor does it have the female parts. Or the case can be that both the male and the female parts are underdeveloped, undeveloped, or non-functional. So flowers in which both the stamen and the pistil are either missing or undeveloped or not properly functional, they are classified into this neuter flower category. So for example, we can have the ray florets of sunflower. So a sunflower has two kinds of florets to it. One is what we call to be the disc florets, and one is what we call to be the ray florets. So this part, this outside part, the yellow parts that you can see outside, so these are the ray florets of the sunflower and they are neuter. Right. So that is it about the classification of flowers on the basis of the presence or absence of the sex organs. Now, moving ahead to the next form of classification, that is on the basis of the fusion of the calyx. What are the individual units of the calyx? Yes, they are the sepals. So this kind of classification is based on how the sepals are present or how are they arranged. So when the sepals are fused, that is, they are joined to each other, we call it to be Gamosepalous. And when the sepals are free, that is, they are not joined to each other, that is when we call them to be Polysepalous. So this is just an example showing you that in the case of hibiscus, what you can see is the sepals are fused. So we call it to be Gamosepalous. If you notice this part here, see the sepals are all joined to each other. While in case of the rose flower that is being shown here, you can note that the sepals are all individually free. This is a sepal, this is another sepal, this is another sepal. So they are all free from each other, right? So this is again another diagrammatic representation of Gamosepalous flowers, and the right side shows you Polysepalous flowers. So the word gamo, wherever you find the word gamo, always know that it means that some kind of fusion is occurring there. And whenever you have the word poly basically means that many components that are free from each other. Many components which are free from each other. Okay, so the next categorization that we have is again regarding the calyx. So now this is on the basis of the persistence of the calyx. So let's see what the different types are. There are flowers where the sepals usually fall off when the flower completely opens or you have the fruit with you. So these are known as deciduous calyx, and you will mostly find them in Brassica. That means you will mostly find them in the mustard family. The mustard family is what we call to be Brassicaceae. So mustard family is a classic example that shows deciduous calyx. This is an image showing the same thing. The other category that we have is the sepals will remain attached even after the fruit is formed. So these kind are known as persistent calyx, and you will find them in fruits or vegetables such as guava, brinjal, pea. Now look into this image. See, this is the image of a brinjal. We've all seen it, right? So this part that you can see on top, what is this part? This is the persistent calyx that we are talking about, right? So on the basis of whether the calyx falls off or stays after the flower opens and fruit is formed, we have two categories. One is deciduous calyx, the other is the persistent calyx. Okay, so now getting into the classifications regarding the corolla. So we are classifying flowers on the basis of the fusion of the corolla. What are the different types? When the petals are free from each other, we call it to be polypetalous. Like just as we discussed that when we find the word poly, it means to say that there are many units which are free from each other. They're not joined with each other. So for example, you can have mustard, rose, etc. As you can very easily see, we can pluck out individual petals of the rose, right? So this belongs to the polypetalous category. The second category that you can have here are the united petals where they form a tube. That is what we call to be Gamopetalous. And this is found in flowers like the Datura, Petunia. This is a image that is showing us the Datura flower where it's clearly seen that the petals are present in the form of a tube. Okay, so now we are beginning with the classification on the basis of stamens. We are classifying on the basis of cohesion of stamens. There are different categories: Monoadelphous, Diadelphous, Polyadelphous, Syngenesious, Synandrous. So one by one, let us have a look into them. The first thing we have is Monoadelphous. So if you analyze this term, what do you see? You see mono. So mono means what? Mono means one, right? That means all the filaments of every stamen which is present, they are united together to form just one bundle, a single bundle. The example we find here is Malvaceae family. Hibiscus is a member of that family. The second category that you have is Diadelphous. So you have di here. What does di means? Di stands for two. That means here we will be having two bundles, right? Two bundles of what? Two bundles of the filaments. That is, filaments unite to form two bundles. So this is an example where you can see that in one bundle you have 9 filaments together, 9 stamens together, and in the other bundle you just have one stamen alone. So this is just an example. Such things can be found in pea plants, sesbania, etc. The third type that you can see here is Polyadelphous. What do you mean by poly? Wherever you have the word poly, you should understand that it means many, right? So many, that means filaments unite to form lot of bundles, many bundles. And this is found in the citrus family. The other categories that we have, what are they? You have Syngenesious and Synandrous. Now, in case of Monoadelphous, Diadelphous, Polyadelphous, what did we see? That our filaments were all united, right? While the anthers were free. But in this case, in case of Syngenesious, you see that the reverse has occurred. The filaments are free while the anthers are united in this case. The diagram should make it more clear. That is, the filaments are free filaments, while the anthers are fused with each other. A good example is sunflower. And in case of the Synandrous category, here the stamens are fused all throughout. That is, the filaments are also fused, the anthers are also fused. And a good example is the cucurbita. The type of classification that we are going to now talk about is about the carpels. So we are classifying flowers on the basis of the fusion of carpels. The first category is Apocarpous. So Apocarpous means the carpels or the pistils, they are separate from each other. And Syncarpous means they are fused. The pistils are fused. So I think this diagram should be clear enough to make you understand that in case of Syncarpous ovary, you see that all the pistils are fused. While in case of Apocarpous, you can separately or you can distinguish between the various carpels. The next classification is on the basis of the position of the ovary. So we have 3 types here. What are they? Hypogynous, Perigynous and Epigynous. Hypogynous basically means that superior ovary. If you look into the diagram very carefully, you'll be able to understand that as compared to the other whorls of the flower, the ovary is placed at a slightly higher position. The second category that you see is perigynous. This is what we call to be the half inferior ovary. What do I mean by that? That is, again, if you look into the diagram carefully, you see that the other whorls are beginning from the middle portion of the ovary. So the ovary is half inferior. While in epigynous, this is completely inferior. So this category is what we call to be epigynous or inferior ovary. That means in this case, all the other whorls are at a level on top of the ovary. They are higher to the ovary, right? So we have three categories. One is hypogynous, superior ovary. For example, you can consider tomato, brinjal, tulip, all these kinds. Then second category you have is perigynous, that is half inferior ovary. For example, you can consider rose, peach, cherry, etc. And the third category that we have is epigynous, which is inferior ovary. For example, you can consider cucumber, daffodils, etc. Okay, so this is the last classification that we are doing, that is on the basis of symmetry. There are basically three types that we will be having here. The first one that we have is actinomorphic. So what is actinomorphic? Actinomorphic flowers are radially symmetrical. What do we mean when we say radially symmetrical? Say this is a circle, right? So from the center, if you draw a line which connects the two ends, so that can be considered to be a diameter, or you can like say a radius, or in full a diameter, right? So what we can say is any such line passing from the center and meeting the ends is a radius or rather a diameter. So any such line will be able to separate the flower into two equal halves. Please note that it is necessary that the halves should be equal, right? That means flower which can be divided into two equal halves along any plane are known as actinomorphic flowers. The second category that we can have in this case, that is they are bilaterally symmetrical. So again, see, when we have the word bi, what does bi means? Bi means two. That means there will be only one plane to divide the flower into two halves. Getting it? That is, only from the center you can have one line which is gonna cut the flower so that it is separated into two equal parts. Now just for instance, say I want to cut the flower from here, this line. Suppose I cut the flower from this line. Does it make two equal halves? This part and this entire half, is it equal? No, right? So that does not properly qualify, or that does not at all qualify as a line to separate the flower into two halves. So there is only one such possible line or one such plane to separate the flower into two equal halves. The third category that we have, these are asymmetric flowers. So asymmetric flowers are flowers which do not have any symmetry at all. That means these are what kind? They are irregular flowers. Meaning whatever plane you consider, you will not be able to divide the flower into two equal halves. So this image is of the flower of a partridge pea. So see, just if you look into the image, you'll understand that whatever plane you consider, from wherever you want to consider, you will never be able to cut the flower into two equal halves. So that is why we call these flowers to be asymmetric flowers. We are done with understanding the classification of flowers. Please like the video, comment below and let me know how you liked it. Also ask if you have any doubts regarding anything we have discussed in the video. Please share the video with those you think might benefit from it. And please do not forget to subscribe to our channel BioXplaining. Let's keep learning. Thank you. Bye-bye.